This has been litigated 253 times by Liberty Counsel, 253 times. We've won every single case, and our attorneys said they have never seen a district and their attorneys conduct themselves the way the Providence attorneys and the district conduct themselves. They said it's unprecedented.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm David and I'm joined by my wife Jessica. Today we're in episode 56 and we are interviewing a couple of representatives, some leaders from the Good News Club and the Child Evangelism Fellowship. Their names are, we have Ryan, the chairman, and we have the director, Alan Snow. I'm going to pull them up on the screen here so you can see them. Welcome to the podcast. So glad you guys could join us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So if maybe we'll start with you, Alan. For those who haven't heard of the Child Evangelism Fellowship, and I really want to dive into the Good News Club, can you give us an overview of the organization? What's the mission? What's the purpose of your group?
Well, so Child Evangelism Fellowship is the largest children's ministry in the world. So we reached over 19 million children with the gospel of Jesus Christ in 2022. We're in nearly every country. We're in every state of the United States, and so each state is organized as its independent ministry. So CEF of Rhode Island, for example. And our mission, as it is across the globe, is to evangelize children with the gospel of Jesus Christ, disciple them in God's word, and establish them in a local church for Christian living. So Rhode Island, we're not reaching 19 million children, but we are seeking to reach children in every community of Rhode Island.
That's great. And one of the arms of the Child Evangelism Fellowship is the Good News Clubs. And some people will know they were in the news a few months back. But before we get into the news that you guys made in the state of Rhode Island, tell us what the Good News Clubs do and how they're attached to your mission.
Sure, David. So for CEF, the Good News Club is one of our key ministries. And it's an after-school Bible club that meets weekly for 60 to 90 minutes in a variety of locations. But one of the primary locations we do this at is in public elementary schools. It's a fast-paced and fun after-school program that includes Bible stories, songs, a memory verse, games and activities, and always a clear presentation of the gospel, and also a message for the child that already believes in Christ as his or her Savior. It's usually a ministry of a local church that assembles a team of volunteers to conduct the club. We, CEF, provide the training, the curriculum, the background checks, the liability insurance. We interface with local officials to establish the club. So really, we make it so that that team from a church can just come in and minister to the children. So people start thinking about, wow, you're doing this in a public elementary school. Can you do that? Is it legal? And yes, it very much is legal. In fact, it was the subject of a Supreme Court decision in June 2001 that you can look up the case of Good News Club versus Milford, New York Central School. And in that case, the Supreme Court decided that faith-based organizations have equal access to public school facilities according to any non-school related outside group. So that was based on, they decided that school district was violating the First Amendment free speech rights of the Good News
Club. You had mentioned that the purpose really is evangelism, right? I mean, this is not just like a after-school chess club, but it is a spiritual club, right? There is a discipleship component to it, and it sounds like men and women from the local churches who are trained to kind of go in and lead these groups. And the children don't have to be Christians to join, right? It sounds like there might be some Christians that started or are part of it, but then as the club is growing, you start having some of these non-Christian kids jump in, and I guess the hope is that they become followers of Jesus as well.
It's offered to kids of any faith, and I think when some parents look at it, some parents say, well, that are Christians say, yeah, I want my kids in that, but also there's families that say, well, I like my kids to learn a little bit more about God. And we're in an age today where many children don't know who God is, have never seen a Bible, don't have a Bible in their homes, but perhaps their parents are saying, this is something I want my child to know a little bit about. So we welcome children of all backgrounds and all faiths. And it's typically the way we get the word out is we distribute information about it throughout the school to all the kids, and parents can decide whether or not to sign their child up or not.
So what's the reception from the parents? Are they excited when they hear their son or daughter wants to join a club? Do you get a lot of pushback? Are kids maybe there for 1 week and then the parents find out and they're pulled out? I'm really curious about what the interaction's like with some of the parents.
I mean, you get all of the above, I will say, but most people take the time to find out what it's about before they send their child, and they're pleased with the results. And it's yeah, we do get some parents that didn't quite realize what it's about, and decide that it isn't for their child. But we have some very, very high interest. We got to participate in an open house at the William Debate Elementary School just this school year to hand out registration forms and flyers. So this is when we get to talking a little bit about Providence. This is an elementary school in Providence where we were there before, and we had a lot of interest. Many kids registered, and parents were excited about it. So it was great to hear from the parents, and we had folks that were talking to. We had some folks that were fluent in Spanish that were talking to the parents that only spoke Spanish. We were talking to the parents that only spoke English as well, and it was just it was great to be back there, and we've had a lot of support from that particular school and its parents and its administration.
You mentioned
I got a question for him, David. Yeah. So Alan,
I'll monopolize this.
So I was hearing you say that some parents are kind of surprised and then pull their child out. However, when I was speaking to one of the individuals who had reached out to me about what was happening legally anyway, which we will get to in a few minutes, was that before a child could enroll in this after-school program, that first the parent had to approve or sign off on the student's participation. Is that the case?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we think it's pretty clearly stated as to what the club is about on the registration form, on the flyers, that parents a child cannot attend without parental permission. Sometimes we have a child that wants to come with their friend, and we'll say, well, you can come back next week, but you have to have this form filled out by your mom or dad. And we don't admit kids that don't have parental permission. That's pretty important. We don't want to circumvent any parental decisions.
Right. Ryan, maybe this is a chance for Ryan to jump in here, but could you tell us a little bit about the presence in the state of Rhode Island? How many schools are you in, and how many students have been enrolled in some of these Good News Clubs?
I believe we're up to, is it 14 clubs in 7 districts, Alan? Is that correct?
Well, I actually got it in front of me here, so I think we've got 11 clubs. We've got 5 different districts we're in. And it looks like we've got 141 kids registered so far for this school year. This may be our biggest year so far in terms of number of kids involved.
That's amazing. Do you have any sense for how many of those kids attend do they attend a church? Are they part of, a local parish or something?
Yeah, we see some that are, but we also hear about kids that attend church for the first time after coming to our Good News Club.
Mm.
Maybe sometimes with their parents. Sometimes we've heard of a case where twin brothers that were coming to one of our Good News Clubs started attending church with their grandfather. So it's we find that the message reaches beyond the kids. Often the kids will share what they've learned with mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa, and it's such a blessing to see the truth of what Christ did for them on the cross be shared beyond just them. They start sharing the good news as well.
That's
That's
awesome.
amazing. Yeah, that's something. Jeff?
So, yeah, one of the things that I'm most interested about is the legal issues that you guys ran into. Apparently, there were, I think it was a Providence School District that didn't want the Good News Club. And so then it became a First Amendment issue, and the school wouldn't respond. And so then I guess litigation was brought forth, or I'm not exactly sure on the details. So I'd love to hear, is it Alan that's going to be talking to us about that?
I'll actually let Ryan speak to that because
Ryan
was involved
Okay.
with this before I was.
So Ryan, could you tell us a little bit about what happened in Providence and what happened, what the outcome was?
One thing I like to start by saying is, while the lawsuit was filed against the Providence Public Schools, I think by and large, the people in the Providence Public Schools were quite supportive, save a couple or maybe 3 or 4 at the high levels. And I believe they were state people who were stonewalling it. We had a principal of a school who was quite supportive. Back in 2019, we started a club at William DeBate Elementary School in partnership with Pastor Santos Escobar from Vida Abundante Church in Providence. And like Alan was describing the open house this year, back in 2019, we had the opportunity not just to be at the open house, but I had an opportunity to speak to all the parents who were there at that open house. And we had 48 children sign up for the club that night at the open house. Very supportive. I had an opportunity to speak to the principal of the school for about an hour, and found him to be very supportive and a very honorable man who was definitely passionate about the best interests of the children. Obviously, COVID shut that club down in April or March of 2020, and there were no after-school clubs for the duration of that year, and then a portion of 2021. When the announcement was made that after-school clubs were restarting in 2021, I sent an email requesting permission to restart the club. And that email got to some high ups at the Providence Public School District who were responsible for the after school program. And they said, well, you can't just restart this club. We have to approve you, and you have to be approved as official partners of the Providence Public School District. I said, well, that's fine. When can we meet? And I met with 2 individuals from the state. And based on the line of questioning and the tone, I had a feeling it was going to be a problem. They never said no, but they were very elusive, let's call it that. And they asked me for a lot of information, all of which they had on their email. This was on a Friday, and they had it on their email as requested Saturday morning. I followed up the following week. They confirmed that they received the information. And then for the next, I would say about 3 weeks, I heard nothing. I followed up and they said, well, it's in the process of review and we can't rush the process. We will be back to you. I let another 2 weeks go by. I followed up again, still under review. And this went on back and forth for about 2 months. And, it got to a point where I said, look, and in the meantime, the principal of the school had reached out to me and said, when are you guys starting this club? We really want this club going. I said, I'm sorry. I can't do anything. My hands are tied because of the district is not approving the start of this club. He said, what are you talking about? And I told him what was happening. And he reached out and he started to pressure the district. And it was just stonewall. Then I started to get requests for more information, and they wanted a plan for, how the children were going to benefit academically. I submitted that. They wanted metrics, which seemed odd to me. It's just an after-school program. Bottom
What
line,
kind of, if I could, what kind of metrics were they requesting, Ryan?
they wanted metrics that said, the based on what we've seen from other clubs, the percentage of classroom participation, school attendance, grades, how our club would impact those things. What do you forecast would be the academic benefit of this club? All seemed very odd to me, but I said, okay, if this is what it takes, that's fine. But then we reached a point where it just became obvious we're going nowhere here. And I said, look, I sent them the Supreme Court decision from 2001, which I had already sent them, but I reminded them that under equal access, if you're allowing other after-school programs that are not school-sponsored and school-led, that by law, you can't discriminate against us. And I was just getting nowhere. And so I turned it over to our attorneys at Liberty Counsel, and basically they took it from there. And it was quite amazing the way the district handled themselves. They put themselves in default because we submitted the lawsuit. We submitted it, and they have 21 days to respond. They didn't respond. No response to the court. And so they were in default. And then finally they responded, and the judge removed the default. And the day of the hearing, their attorneys didn't even show up. And the court had to call their attorneys to get them in the courtroom.
That seems very unusual, Ryan, for the attorneys not to show up to their court case. That seems unprecedented. That seems like just a sign of that they were surrendering, more or less.
This has been litigated 253 times by Liberty Counsel, 253 times. We've won every single case, and our attorneys said they have never seen a district and their attorneys conduct themselves the way the Providence attorneys and the district conduct themselves. They said it's unprecedented. Wow. So yes, it was quite unusual.
That's
well, here's
awful.
Just to highlight the article here. It says Providence Journal. This is back in July 18th. Providence will allow child evangelism clubs in schools in new agreement, and now what that means. So did anything change from pre-COVID when the Good News Clubs were in operation to after this court ruling that there had to be a new agreement?
Are you asking if anything changed from pre-COVID to up until this lawsuit, or after the lawsuit?
After the lawsuit, was there any change that had to be made or implemented with the Good News Club?
No. It was well, Alan. See, during this whole time, Alan came on as our director. I was the acting director through everything that I just described. I'm the board chairman, but I was the acting director, and then during this period of time, Alan came on as our director. So some of the nature of your question related to since the lawsuit, Alan is more able to answer those questions. He's more involved.
Yes, I can comment on that. So after the decision this summer, we initiated our request to start Good News Clubs in two elementary schools in the Providence Public School District, and I will say since that they've been quite cooperative. There's been a couple of little, I'd say, bureaucratic issues, but we've been able to work through those. I have found that they've had somebody from the superintendent's office that is really kind of the point person on making sure that they comply with the court order, which has been really helpful.
Mm.
So we proposed doing clubs in 2 elementary schools. One of the elementary schools simply didn't have the space, so we asked, well, can we go into this other school, which was very close to where the church was? And so we've established clubs in those 2 elementary schools, both William Debate Elementary we were in previously, and also Alfred Lima Elementary. And between those 2 schools, we now have over 50 children registered for the clubs, attending the clubs, and we're really excited to be there and reaching the kids.
That really is exciting. Um, I am uh, since the clubs have resumed and since they've started back up, is there any way to track the impact that the clubs are having on the individual students? It is a question, it's interesting. The school department is asking you for metrics, and maybe that was just to provide some speed bumps and some obstacles that you'd have to just kind of jump through. But I do believe that, once you uh, touch someone's soul and their spirit and you kind of fix that, I feel that that starts to change some of the other parts of a person's life. Their emotional well-being and their social and even their academics might improve. Were you able to find, or is there any way to even track something like that?
Well, that would really require a good partnership with the schools to collect that kind of
Mhm.
data, I think, David. But I will tell you that we have had, so we're maybe not to that level, but maybe the principal at William Debate would help us out. But I will tell you, we've had a number of school officials that really have thought about the impact and seen the change in behavior of kids that are gone through the Good News Club. And we've had one superintendent that we worked with that he wanted Good News Clubs in every one of his elementary schools, and we were able to do that because he saw
Wow.
the impact on the kids that attended. He saw how they responded, respected authority. He saw how they were more focused in their schoolwork. He saw how their behavior improved. They didn't weren't getting into trouble, and so that kind of things, whether it's uh, objective or subjective data, it's something that these school officials do see, and it's one of these things like the children's book Green Eggs and Ham, where the person says, "I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like green eggs and ham." Well, eventually, they actually try it and they say, I do like green eggs and ham," and that's what we've
Mhm.
seen. Once they
Mhm.
start seeing the results, they like what we're doing, and they like the impact, and they can see it from a secular educator standpoint, that they see the children improve in the way in school, not having as many problems, behavior problems, and better respect for authority.
Wow. Ryan, just to kind of go back to the court case, one question I was wondering, Liberty Counsel, why did they take on this case? Obviously, it was a huge victory for them. You mentioned dozens of cases, maybe over 100. I can't remember, but dozens of cases where they fought this very same issue and they've won over and over and over again. I mean, you cited a 2001 Supreme Court case. I think that this settled the question of like equal access for some of these clubs in the schools. But why did they pick up this case?
Liberty Counsel has worked very closely with Child Evangelism Fellowship. Matter of fact, Liberty Counsel works pro bono for CEF, and they have litigated the Good News Club over 250 times without losing a single time because the law is so clear. Typically, all it takes is a letter reminding school officials of the law. It's very unusual that it gets to the point where we're actually in court. Um, and that was the case here. And I cannot for the life of me understand why, because it was so clear. I don't know why the school allowed it to get to this, the district allowed it to get to this point, but they did. But as far as Liberty Counsel, they've been a very, very close working relationship with Child Evangelism Fellowship for a couple of decades now.
So I have to ask, I guess we'll never know why Providence Public Schools displayed that kind of obstinance, faced with the facts that Liberty Counsel had never lost a case and how ironclad their case was. How do you know how much money the Providence Public Schools wasted on this lawsuit?
It's interesting that you ask about money, and I want to work this in, being as how you asked about money. I don't know the answer to your question. They had to pay for all of our legal fees, or Liberty Counsel, because Liberty Counsel, while they don't charge Child Evangelism Fellowship anything, they do go after, in this case, the district for their legal cost. But we were asked if we wanted to attach a dollar amount, which we were entitled to, due to, our First Amendment rights being violated, and the appropriateness of attaching a monetary dollar amount to that. We elected not to do that for two reasons. Number one is we never wanted to make this about money. We wanted to make this about what was best for the children. And we believe in our program, and we believe in our program's potential impact on the children and their family and the community and the schools. And secondly is we recognize that the Providence School District is funded by taxpayers. And we did not want taxpayers to be on the hook for what we felt were the stonewalling of a very small number of people in the district. And so whatever the dollar amount was, it could have been a lot more, because we would have gotten it because it was so blatant. But we elected not to go that direction for those two reasons.
I'm just curious, how much could the Good News Clubs have recuperated or asked for in damages?
We'd be speculating, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Has any other school district in the country, besides Providence, encountered a similar issue like yours, where you were stonewalled and despite the multiple attempts at communication, were just completely ignored?
There was a district in San Diego that I know had to pay upwards of around $100,000. That one I know for sure. I believe it was like $98,000 or something along those lines.
For me, it just seems.
Usually, there's been back. Your question, Jessica, on time and stonewalling. What I've seen is these situations do tend to run over not months but years, where we keep trying to work. Our other chapters keep trying to work with the local administrators to get in, because we don't want to take it to court if we don't have to. But usually, but court is the last resort when our rights are being infringed upon.
So just to be clear, the schools, if they allow outside groups to have these clubs, after school clubs, then the school has to allow your club to come as well. But if the school only has school sponsored clubs, then no outside clubs can have an after school club, correct?
Correct. It's an equal access.
That's right. That's right. If it's only school sponsored clubs, they don't have to let us in. They may choose to, and we love it if they do, but they don't have to.
Right. It's interesting how this is. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry to interrupt you. We had that happen in Norwich, Connecticut, where they did not have any outside clubs, and the superintendent denied us, and then we applied again, and we went to the principal, and the principal advocated for the club because he believed in it. And the superintendent said, okay, if you want it, you got it. And I walked into that club, and we had 42 children. It was the first experience I ever had with a Good News Club back in 2014. I had no idea what to expect. 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. We had 42 kids, and that was the result of a principal that said, "I know we don't have to, but I want to."
Hmm.
And that club is still going to this day.
That's awesome. 2014, and here we are almost 10 years later.
Now we are in four. We're now in four of their elementary schools in that district, and we'd be in every one if we could put teams together.
Well, and that seems to be the thing. What I'm hearing is the clubs are beneficial to the students, right? They're behaving better, they're performing better academically and emotionally, and all that. The parents have signed on to it. Those that want to be a part and want their children to be a part, they're happy about it. You're getting such a positive reception from so many of the superintendents and principals, but it sounds like the need really is, and Jesus said this, right? The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few, the workers are few. And is that sort of the bind that you're in right now?
That's a big part of it. So yeah, I mean, in fact, one of the kind of the key verse for for CEF in the U.S. is Luke 10:2, which you just quoted. The need for those to serve is high, and we would love to talk with any church that would like to sponsor Good News Club right in their community, right in a nearby elementary school. So just beyond the Great Commission, where we're called as faithful believers to share the gospel, it also is an opportunity for that church to have not only those children minister to those children, but also minister to their entire families, and have those families become part of their congregation. So it's a really neat opportunity for a church, and for the pastors I've worked with that understood the vision, caught the vision, they want to be involved in this. And we have some pretty small churches that are putting together teams, number of churches of less than 100 people that are really decided this is an important ministry to them. So that's a really big part of making this work and helping it grow is getting churches engaged and getting volunteers. So it's a very important part of it.
I'm going to put the website up to cefonline.com if people want to learn more about the Child Evangelism Fellowship, but also the Good News Clubs. So this is a great opportunity for churches to be a part of. It's great when the pastors get behind it and they kind of mobilize the troops. But is this something that a grandparent or a parent in a school district might say, I want to bring this to my kid's school? Would they be able to do that? And then could even a person listening to this podcast who has a heart for children or wants to see the gospel shared with young people, could they just go to your website and sign up and kind of be trained?
Well, so a couple of things. So I would point. Well, I love the CEF Online website. That's great to learn about the different ministries. Specific to CEF of Rhode Island, I would go to cefri.org. So that is for our particular state chapter. And so if you're a parent out there, a grandparent that say, "Well, I wish this was in my child or grandchild's school," what I would say is, if you're in that community and your church is in that community, talk to your pastor. We really like to have church teams put together, and churches kind of own that as a ministry of theirs. So that's been our primary vehicle. We've also done some situations where a couple of churches have come together to put together teams, and for small churches that's worked well. And actually, the one I'm familiar with is actually in Connecticut, and it's actually one pretty large church of about 500 or 600 people, and one church of about 120 people doing one club together, along with other clubs. They're already each other church is doing 2 other clubs as well, but they had a unique situation, and they have a joint team. So I would encourage them to talk to their pastor and talk to me, because I may know of a church in that town that is interested, and I can start reaching out to see if I can drum up the interest. So I'm glad to do that.
Can
Ryan,
I
if I hear you guys correctly, there's a demand for it, but there's just really a need for boots on the ground for people to show up.
so one thing that's important is Child Evangelism Fellowship is a parachurch ministry, which means to come up alongside, and that's what we're looking to do. We are looking to help local churches with their outreach. Child Evangelism Fellowship has a wonderful curriculum. So we provide the curriculum, we provide the training, provide the background screening, we provide all of the logistical interaction with the school to set the club up. What we are looking for from the church is to provide a team of 6 people to take the tools that we already have in place and go in and faithfully teach the club. The reason why we want to partner with local churches, we have a threefold mission: to evangelize boys and girls with the gospel of Jesus Christ, to disciple them in the word of God, and to establish them and hopefully their families in a local church. That's why we want to partner with the local church, because a good news club 1 hour a week is not nearly enough. It's a great start, but ultimately a local church needs to minister to those children and their families. And so the goal is ultimately to get those families worshiping in a local church. And that's where that partnership comes into play. So we want the churches to look at this as their own outreach ministry, taking the tools that people in Child Evangelism Fellowship have worked hard on for decades. Our ministry has been around since 1937. And so we have these wonderful tools in place. Take it and run with it and make it your own, and bring the gospel to the children in your community, and then reach out to those families. Just one quick story, if I may, and there's many stories like this, but this is one of them. A church here locally in Coventry had a little boy coming to the Good News Club, no church at all, completely unchurched family, completely unchurched child. One day during a prayer time, he made it known that his brother was in prison. And so the pastor of that church, who was leading the Good News Club, kind of took him aside and said, "Can you tell me a little bit more?" And then when mom and dad, or mom or dad, picked the child up that day from the Good News Club, the pastor talked to the parent and said, "I was informed of what's going on. Would it be okay if I visited him in the prison?" Which he did. He visited him at the prison, and then got close with the family. Anyway, that entire family, including the brother who got out of prison, is all now worshiping, and they have been worshiping now for the last couple of years at this church. That's an example. That's an example of what our goal is. It's not just to have a good news club, it's to impact children and their families with the word of God.
That's great. It reminds me of the Billy Graham's kind of model was not just to kind of show up in a city or town and preach the gospel and then leave, but he always partnered with local churches, making sure that they were the ones that were right there at the altar, right there to help people fill out the forms, and then do their best to connect them to the local church, get them discipled, get them into groups, get them a Bible. So I love that you guys have such a heart for the local church. That's really beautiful. That's great. Jess, do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, would love to. I appreciate you guys coming on, taking the time to talk to us and sharing what the Good News Clubs do here in Rhode Island. You guys have been around for a long time, maybe not necessarily you two, but the organization. And so thank you for what you do. For me, listening to you, the biggest takeaways were, as a parent, I know that parents need to sign off and give permission to children. So, and I think that's so important. And I'm glad that that's something that you follow, where you got to have buy-in from the family. And the other thing that really stuck out to me that just makes me so upset is the First Amendment issue here, where discrimination solely based on the fact that you're Christian faith. And so that's never okay. And I'm glad that the organization found resolution and that you're back in schools. So again, we thank you for your time, and everyone that was listening. I hope that you enjoyed the podcast, that you learned something new. If you want to reach out to the Good News Club, the information is right there at the bottom of the screen. And check in next week as we have new guests and new topics every week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining us. Take care.